Joining me tonight for reading between the lineups is none other than my co-host on Thursdays for This Weekend Perfect Team. It's Your Kidneys, the keeper of the sheet. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and on such short notice. So really where I wanted to start here is to learn a little bit more about you. You know, you're on the Discord, you're active in many different channels on DLL, in various other Discords, in the main Out of the Park Discord. You're helping people in roster and strategy advice. But I don't know that many people have had the opportunity to peel the onion that is Your Kidneys. So why don't you start us off with just kind of a broad, open question of us wanting to know a little bit more about the real person behind the handle?
Sure. So my name is Ben Mayhew. I'm 21. I am from Fairfield County in Connecticut. If you don't know where that is, I'm about an hour east of New York, New York City. I'm a kind of a quiet guy, though I love talking a lot when it comes to strategy and baseball, which is where most of you guys see me. So you're probably used to me talking. I'm the youngest of two kids. I skipped college just because I didn't really feel it was for me. And I don't know. I've spent a lot of the past year just kind of pouring over this game. This game's something I've been in since Out of the Park 18. I've just played a lot of the offline mode. It's been really a passion of mine ever since I found out about it. And it's just really something I enjoy to do.
So before we go any further, explain to the world how you got the handle. What is Your
So,
Kidneys all about?
Your Kidneys is very, very simple. It is a kill feed type handle moniker. And what that means, if you're not familiar with an FPS game like Call of Duty or CSGO or something like that, when you fight somebody, at the top of your screen in the corner, it'll say, like, you were killed by your kidneys or you killed your kidneys. It was just something funny to pop up on the screen when you died or I died or something like that. I was 12 or 13 when I made the name, and I had a really funny interaction with somebody when I was playing Pokemon about it, and I just decided to kind of keep it.
Sure, I remember in some old school Halo 1 link up parties, which probably sound completely foreign to you. But I know that me and my buddies, we played that same game, where you try to come up with the funniest thing that you can put in the kill feed, and then you typically end up with a couple funny things, a couple of duds, and then a couple of really inappropriate words. But I get where you're going for there, and I get the etymology there of Your Kidneys. Now, transitioning to something a whole lot more serious, you've run into some health issues in your life. You've had some things that have been, a big deal in your life and have been some obstacles that you've had to overcome. So, really, what has that been like, and how has that affected your life?
So, one of the reasons I have so much free time and I've been able to devote so much of my time to the spreadsheet and Out of the Park is because of my health. And really, realistically, they don't know what's wrong with me. I've had 4 concussions, all not really sport related, but I've gone through a 2 year straight of having a migraine. I've gone through a mess of back issues. I have probably one of the most severe sensitivities to allergens I think most doctors have ever seen. I tested at like an 809 when I think normally allergic people test at 120 on an IgE scale. So just a lot of things like that have all added up to kind of combine to make this beast that is my health. So I'm on a lot of medication and I really can't get out of the house much. I can't do much. I don't feel well a lot. So I spend most of my day at my computer. Just very recently, I finally got a work at home part-time job, and that's been my first job I've been able to hold. So it's taken a little bit of time away from Out of the Park, but I spend most of my free time just playing around with a spreadsheet.
So, how has that new job been? Have you been enjoying it? Has that been a welcome change for you, or is it killing you because it's taking away your out of the park time?
I've enjoyed the change. There's only so much Out of the Park you can do before it gets a little monotonous. I The issue is just the past week or so, everything's kind of flared up again, and I've really not been feeling well, and I had to take some time off already, and I've only been at the job 3 weeks. I'm lucky to have a very understanding boss who's my uncle, but so it's it's been rough, man, recently, and it's hard to get that together. So even like just we're recording this on Sunday. I got to go back to work tomorrow morning, and I'm just kind of wondering right now, how am I going to feel tomorrow? Is tomorrow going to be okay? Right? Like how am I going to manage my time and my energy and things like that? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And before Out of the Park was something that was eating up a lot of that free time, and before you had the part-time job, eating up a lot of your free time, what were you really using to
Um,
occupy yourself?
I pretty much would just watch a lot of TV shows and a lot of videos, and I played card games competitively. You hear that, and a lot of you people are a lot older than I am. Remember, I'm only 21, so and you'll think like poker or Texas Hold'em, something along those lines. But no, I played Yu-Gi-Oh on a competitive level. That's when I was 12, and I was 12 years old online playing with a bunch of 20-year-olds, and that's what I used most of my free time for. And then I got into competitive Pokemon battling, not cards, but the video game, and I did that for quite a while. And so those were pretty much my two main holdovers.
So it sounds like you have quite the track record of diving in deep into a game and starting to play it at the highest levels and being very competitive with it.
Yeah, I have a competition type problem. And I made a deal with myself after Pokemon. I really wouldn't, or not after Pokemon, after Yu Gi Oh!, that I wouldn't try and compete at anything at that kind of a level again. And baseball has kind of pushed that a little bit. But I'm not a whale. I don't have a lot of money. I don't. Um, I'm not one of those people that grind the auction house. So I'm, a competitive diamond team, but I don't see myself, competing in perfect league anytime soon, really. So.
I'm curious. It seems like your personality type would be a perfect fit for fantasy sports. Are you a fantasy football player, fantasy baseball player? Have you ever gone off the deep end in that realm?
So I played fantasy baseball once and I hated it, because I am a very on base wins the game, average wins the game. Those kind of things don't translate too well in fantasy baseball, from what I found. Right, it's
Hmm.
more of a three true outcome kind of sport, from what I found from the year I played it. And I also was pretty sour because the guy who won our league didn't touch his lineup from the day he drafted it. So that also kind of just ruined my experience. But I played a ton of fantasy football. In fact, I've played fantasy football since I was 10. This is the first year I have not played fantasy football since I was 10. So almost the past 11 years. And there was one year, instead of doing a bunch of mock drafts, I accidentally did a bunch of live drafts, and I ended up running 10 teams one season. That was a real experience, let me tell you.
Wow. And those fantasy leagues, were they mostly with like your high school buddies or your local friends?
My high school friends and my dad, and actually that is my introduction into spreadsheets, was fantasy football, because my dad is a computer programmer. Well, he started as a computer programmer. He is now a quality assurance manager, uh, for Prudential. But what he does is he runs a lot of spreadsheet work. And so he would build these giant spreadsheets for fantasy football and track player stats and trends. And so he would share those with me, and we would go over them together and try and find players that would, be on a rise, or certain patterns and things like that. And we would win all the time. We had really good win rates doing things like that. So.
Yeah, speaking of your high school buddies, rumor has it that you had quite the high school nickname. Why don't you tell us what the nickname was and how you ended up being adorned it?
So I had quite the reputation in high school for liking unicorns. I know this is a weird topic, but not only was it quite the reputation, but it got to the fact where somebody put my name through one of those like little social media pass around name generators things, and it came out with the unicorn name Bubbles Sugar Socks. And not necessarily the sugar socks part, but the bubbles part stuck. And because there was another Ben in my friend group, I became Bubbles. Um, and I was Bubbles throughout all of high school, very specifically, mainly by my ex girlfriend. But yeah, I was Bubbles in high school for a very long time. Yes.
Now, do people still call you Bubbles, Ben?
No, I don't really talk to many of those friends from high school. I have a different friend group. So I was actually homeschooled growing up. So that friend group was like my friend group from my church youth group.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them went off to college, and I just don't really hang out with them anymore. But most of like my other friends who were homeschooled, I still hang out with them on Discord, play a bunch of video games with them. So, but they don't really like the Bubbles moniker. So
Well, we can call you Bubbles. We can
you could
transition
do
from
that.
kidneys whenever you want to. But getting
Yeah.
back to Perfect Team and really Out of the Park, you mentioned at the outset that you've played Out of the Park, the main game, plenty. So how long have you been playing Out of the Park, and what brought you in to begin with?
Um, like I said, I've been doing spreadsheets since maybe 11 or 12. I mean, I was running spreadsheets for Yu-Gi-Oh, as like a 12 or a 13-year-old trying to build better decks or optimize cards or ban lists or things like that, right? So it's just something that I've always enjoyed doing is optimization and things like that. And I've always loved baseball. It's been my favorite sport. And so I played baseball growing up, really big into baseball. I was really bad at it. But back when I became 13, 14, I decided I'll give it one more shot. And I tried it again, and I was terrible. And then my mom found this coach. And I don't know what he's doing now, but I like to assume he's moved on to a major league team because this coach was incredible. And he was using all sorts of sabermetric measuring stats, very similar to how golf handles advanced swing statistics, by measuring throughout the swing and things like that. But for baseball, before mainly anybody else does it in baseball, now pretty much everybody uses things like that. Um, and we, over the course of 2 years, changed my swing, and I became one of the best hitters in the state, really, until I had to retire because of my injuries. I mean, I heavily damaged both my big toes and my back, and I blew out my arm, and I had to give up on it. But um, it was an experience. So when I found Out of the Park transitioning from the show, I had actually bought a PlayStation just so I could play the show because I love baseball that much. But then I found Out of the Park, and all the real scout ratings on players really appealed to me, and the fact that I could go in and everything was so accurate, I had so much control over my team. It was just incredible.
So I'm curious to learn a little bit more about your swing reinvention. Now, was it a like a barrel angling thing or a swing pathing adjustment that was made? Was it completely retooling from the ground up? What was it? Certain keys that really unlocked your ability to hit?
So you will learn, um, if you really study baseball swings, every single major league player swings the exact same way. Now, a lot of people don't realize this because when you look at how a lot of players stand at the plate, they all stand very, very differently, right? But every one of their swings, if you break it down in slow motion, is identical. And so what you can do is you find the best players, right, who have the best refined mechanics, people like Mike Trout. Back then I was watching 16-year-old Bryce Harper in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And things like that, right? And you just literally you take it and you frame by frame compare your swing to their swing. Um, and you find out things like, how are you holding your arms throughout the at bat? Are you pulling properly with your front arm? Um, are you pushing through the bat because you actually keep your bat? It's not level. but you keep it at the same flat rate throughout the middle part of your swing. A swing is not circular; you push through the middle part of it, right? So a lot of very interesting things like that. I've kind of always wanted to go back and coach baseball because of how much I learned and how much wrong things little league coaches taught me that I wish I knew better when I was little.
Absolutely. And I think someone like Walnut can tell you, coaching youth baseball and having an impact and being an influence in those kids' lives to get a little bit better at a sport, maybe get a little bit more disciplined in a discipline like baseball is so, so rewarding. So if that opportunity ever opens up for you and you're able to take it, I would strongly encourage you. Now, jumping back to the video game world, you mentioned the show. But the show is not a sports sim, really. Have you played other sports sims?
Um, Really, the closest would be Madden. And I know Madden isn't exactly a sports simulator either, but for me, it's a sports simulator. I would play Madden. I really wouldn't play the games. I would sim the games one by one, and I would manage my roster and make the necessary moves and do things like that and play it like a sports simulator. So I was praying for Football Simulator to be a thing, and then when it got canceled, I was very, very sad.
Yeah, I knew I liked you, Kidneys. And part of the reason is that I played Madden the exact same way. Sim to sim, or week to week. You do your draft, you do your training camp, you do all the various game mechanics in there, and then you skip the games. And you
Yep.
try to build dynasties and try to build teams that can win year over year. Now, I played plenty of the actual game myself, but the thing that I most enjoyed was going sim to sim like that and stuffing an Excel spreadsheet with all of the statistics, offense, defense, team, turnovers, like really everything. And I too would be on the lookout and would be ready to be a ravenous fan of a good football sim, which I don't think really exists today. Now, how about other gotcha games? Have you played them? Gotcha style games?
I'm not quite familiar with the term.
Yeah, so like card games where you buy packs of stuff and then you're kind of
Oh yeah.
at the whims of what comes out of the packs to determine how strong your hand is or how strong your deck is, or in the case of Out of the Park, how strong your team is.
I mean, if we're talking like card games, I've played pretty much every online card game there is, except for like the online version of Magic. I've just never really had an affinity for Magic, but like I played Hearthstone, Eternal, Shadowlands, a lot of more like the kind of more like Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic-esque card games.
Hmm.
I played a lot of mobile baseball and like mobile Madden when I was growing up. Um, Love those kind of things, and building a team that way. Um, so things like that, yeah.
So let's start talking about the sheet. And for anyone who's watching this that doesn't know what it is, Kidneys has laboriously and faithfully updated the spreadsheet of all known cards within the universe. Puts in all the ratings for all the players, and then he also underpins it with a mathematical regression to tell you which cards are good, to provide some guidance as to what types of statistics you can expect from what types of players. And he's continually evolving it. I think you just pushed out a big release in the past week. Now, when you first did that, did you know that you'd end up investing a ton of time and energy into it? Or was it something that kind of snowballed?
No, and this is the thing I don't think a lot of people understand about me. I am a very, I think, anxious, kind of self conscious type of person. And when I did this and I put it public, I had no idea that anybody would want to use this. This was me making a spreadsheet like I do for every video game I play, right? Like we just talked about with Madden, with Yu-Gi-Oh, with Pokemon. I was just building a list, right? Making my ranking system. And I just thought, you know what? Why not? Why not just throw it out there for somebody else to use? If somebody else likes it, that's great. And then I went on like the next day and I looked and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like 8, 10 people on this, right? And then I'm like, okay. And then, I'm like, all right. So when I updated it, I just like pushed out another update, right? And I put it on the Discord when I updated it, right? Because I'm like, there's still 8, 10 people on here. I might as well tell them, I'm updating it. And then I looked and there was like 20 people viewing it. And I'm like, what? What's going on? And I don't think I realized, like, I think there's a real demand for this kind of stuff and the kind of content. And I had no idea. I mean, I'm, as much as I played Perfect Team and I played OOTP in the past, I was not very good at it until this year. And some players like, Maxfire and some other people really took me under their wing and showed me, how the game works inside and out, and helped me to understand. Or even like some people let me see their ranking systems, and then I was able to learn off that. And um, it took me a long time before my sheet was very good at all. It was very bad in the beginning. But yeah, I mean, I was shocked.
So how do you go about building that sheet? Like, was it a blank sheet and then you populated it card by card, or did you have something to start with, like the out of the park list of available cards? How did you go about building it, and then what type of time did you have to put in to complete it with all of the ratings?
So I'm trying to think here. To build it out, I believe I used the initial card list. They post like an
Mm-hmm.
initial card list with all the cards and the card IDs, and that's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think I used that. And then what I did is I went back to the very first this week in Perfect Team, and I literally went through the video and I sat down and I wrote every single card in by hand. And I went through every single This Week in Perfect Team and I wrote every single card in by hand. I will tell you, there were some times I wanted to quit, like doing all 50 cards for the Negro League set. I wanted to quit. It was not fun.
So that kind of leads me to my next question. Why do you do it? It is a ton of time. It's something that you have to keep up with on a weekly basis. And when you don't, or if you don't, I've seen the people in the chat saying, hey, where's the update? Where aren't the new cards in? Hey, what's going on? What's the delay? So why do you do it?
So I think there's a few reasons. I am privy to the sharing of knowledge, and this is a really controversial topic. I didn't think it would be a controversial topic when I first started doing this sort of thing. But what I don't think I realized is there's a lot of money on the line. Not that you can win money, but a lot of people have invested a lot of money into trying to win Perfect League, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm doing and what my goal is really for this sheet is to spread out knowledge and advantage to everybody. Like, I want other people to learn the game like I have. I want other people to be able to try and figure out why a card is good like I have. And I feel like the spreadsheet is a tool, especially with the new hitting system that shows you some more advanced statistics. Like, it'll show you like how much a card gets a hit or something. I feel like that can really open your eyes to like what cards are good and why. And I just feel like it's such a useful tool for a new player starting out, or for maybe for a player who's been playing for a long time but is struggling in Diamond, right? But there are people who just, they, for whatever reason, they don't want it to exist because it feel like it hampers their advantage, right? And I understand that, but to me, I just want the community to grow stronger. It's one of the reasons I actually put my second team in TBD. If you haven't heard of what that is, it's another group like DLL, right? Because I want every group to succeed. I want all the groups to be strong like DLL and BFF and OLR, right? Because I just want more competition in the game. I think that's fun.
So that brings me to my next question. How do you think the sheet is best used by the public? And if that's a different answer for a new player versus an experienced player, so be it. You can feel free to break down that dichotomy.
Yeah, so for sure, I think there's different ways to use it. I think for a new player, it's very helpful just to scan the overall rankings and go through and be like, okay, so this card is roughly this rank and this card is roughly this rank, and I see what their prices are on the market, so maybe this card is a good deal, right? And that's a very simple way to use it, you know what I mean, right? Or maybe that, some card is a really bad split, so I need to platoon it, those are really basic ways to use it. But for a more advanced player, things like Ted Williams might be number 1 or 2 on the sheet, but he really doesn't hit at a higher level, right? Actually, I think he had a pretty good week this week in DLL, but he struggles a lot because of his diversive split and his kind of weird statistical spread. And so that. So when you're evaluating, you can break down the bigger stats and look at things like BAPIP and kind of evaluate the card a bit better, right? And using some of the more advanced statistics on the sheet, you can do things like that, or using the comparison tab, you can kind of break it down a bit more. So I think there's uses for both players. I think a lot of the more use for advanced players is what I've seen a lot of people do is use my sheet as a database. Don't use it for the rankings. Just take the data off my sheet and build your own ranking system, right? And I've seen a lot of people do that themselves as well.
Is there an incorrect way to use it? Is there something that you see people or you've heard of people doing that you feel like is missing the point and or is just not the correct application of the asset?
Yes. Do not quote my rankings to me. Do not just go look at the rankings in a vacuum because they are wrong. At the end of the day, it's just a math equation, right? The observed statistics people will be happy to hear me admit that they will always be right over the model at the end of the day. The advantage of the model is the speed of it, right? And the accessibility, right? Because it's far faster because I can put in a card before it ever gets played and tell you roughly how it does, right? Mm-hmm. And the consistency because, cards in competition vary week to week, right? Versus the model stays the same, So the rankings in a vacuum, there will be cards like Ted Williams that are always going to be overrated. And I'm hoping I have a fix for them soon. That is the hope. But, as of now, you have to look at the ratings with a grain of salt and ask questions. DM me, ask in roster advice. People are pretty great there. And just really, really ask people what you think, or, if you're unsure on something, just ask. That's really how you should play it.
Yeah, I think you're underselling your work just a touch there by saying things like take it with a grain of salt. I think from a relative perspective, you can, with a high degree of confidence, look at the rankings. And if someone is 3 versus right and you're comparing them to someone who's 35 versus right, you can know with certainty that the guy who is 3 is going to be a lot better. So I think the fine nuance between, the sheet saying that someone should be 1 and that person's really 7, kind of misses the point as to that you're not taking it as gospel, but rather just taking it as a relative ranking system. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, no, for sure, right? Don't take it as gospel. Take it with a little bit of relativity. Obviously, I don't think 2 is strictly worse than 1, right? But yeah, 30 is probably worse than 31, right?
Yeah,
also,
so
sorry about the camera audible. My camera battery just died because I left it on from Thursday, so that's going to be what it looks like now.
No worries. You still look great with the dog in the background. We can work with that. So let's talk a little bit about the magic that underpins those rankings. It's the magic that is able to take any sort of combination of ratings and then tell you and project for you with a relative degree of confidence what someone would do if that card were in the game. So there's been a lot of talk of you starting from a base of Davy's work, and many people have heard that name before and knows that Davy was someone who put in a lot of time and an effort and made some great progress for the community in starting to build out some mathematical models to help forecast production. So why don't you tell us about how you started and really where you're at today?
Yeah, so I did start with Davy's work. I know that's a bit of a controversial thing to some people. I issued a public apology for it a while back. If you didn't see that and you have a problem with Davy's work, just DM me and we can talk about it. It's not really a big deal to me. I didn't understand at the time. I think that Davey had a team working with him. So when I heard that Davey had retired and I had paid for his spreadsheet, I didn't have a problem with using it and making it public. But I didn't realize that there were other people that were on his team that were still playing the game. Was my misunderstanding with that. But basically, I used the model from last year and I used that to create a ranking system for this year. And as time went on, I was able to kind of reverse engineer that, and with some help with some people in the community, create my own system, right? And then convert to this year's metrics. And once I got going to this year's metrics, things started to look a lot better. This year is very different from last year in terms of control being better than movement for pitchers, and batters weren't as different, but pitchers certainly were very different.
So, as someone who has a keen appreciation for the order of operations and for the game engine itself, to what do you ascribe a movement like that? Whereas movement was king last year, control is king this year. If the engine was mostly the same, what could cause a shift like that? Or is the engine not the same and the engine does evolve along with the game from year to year?
So there's a few things, right? Obviously, they remove the power and the stuff caps. There's some argument to how they remove the power cap. Um, if I understand it right, there might even be some argument that the power cap remove was detrimental to power hitters. And the stuff cap, it's like once you hit like a certain amount of stuff, I think right now it's like 120, 130-ish. Like it doesn't really matter if you have more too much. So as for like control v movement shifting per year, I don't know if they're like going in and changing the engine. I assume they're updating the engine on some level. But it also could be, are they changing the order of operations a little bit? Because there's some controversy still as what is the actual order, and things like that. So there's a lot of factors that play into it year to year. And it's just something that you got to watch and make sure you're running on. I think people are far better set up this year, though, than last year. And there's a lot more different people running models and different competition for that sort of thing. So I assume next year we're going to have all this data more public and, much more ready to go off the bat, right?
Yeah, so with your hard work, you have a database of all known cards in the universe. You are able to tell with a reasonable degree of certainty which cards are the best, but oftentimes you're not able to deploy the best cards because in the out of the park ocean, you're much more of a dolphin than you are a whale. Does that ever bother you that someone who is as competitive as you are struggles to go to battle with the best of the best because you're just not able to put together the roster of all the players that you'd need to be able to tout that?
Yeah, so it does sometimes. There's sometimes I look at somebody's roster and I think, man, if I had those cards, I'd be able to do so much with it, right? And there's sometimes I see a new toy, and I think, man, I really wish I had that because there's X I could do with it. That would be really cool. Um, but overall, it doesn't really bother me too much. I spend more time on playing the spreadsheets than I do playing the game at this point, and I'm just excited to see what the new toy does in the real world environment compared to the spreadsheet environment and all that sort of stuff. So um, it still excites me to see the new cards, and I don't really get too jealous over them at all. No.
So that's pretty interesting. You're basically saying that you derive a lot of satisfaction out of seeing these new cards generate statistics for other people's teams just as a mechanism to check your own model work and see how accurate you are. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I'm not the best model out there by any means. I often compare myself to like kind of the thrift shop of OTP. I'm not, your most expensive or luxurious place, but I'm what you can get for cheap, right? And that's kind of my shtick. So, I'm not a math guy. I don't really know the inner workings of statistics and things like that. And like, for example, API, who started working on regressions and all this sort of work, is far more advanced than I am, and he's been doing it for 2 months and I've been doing it for 8, right? And so he's now teaching me things that I had no idea where, how things worked and things like that. So it's just kind of, I know I'm in over my head, but I try and make best with what I can do. And so I like to see, how close I am versus something. Do I need to adjust something? Do I need more data? Things like that, right?
Yeah. So is it fair to say that that math was not your best subject?
No, I failed high school math, and it was definitely an influencing factor in why I did not want to go to college.
Yeah, that college level math is no joke. So Kidneys, you're on the record as having said that you're not really interested in playing a market sim. You're not interested in investing a ton of time in the auction house, doing the speculation game, doing the flipping game. Like, that's not why you play this game. Now, what do you mean when you say that, and really what makes you say it?
Yeah, so I never really cared about like money in general. It's just kind of like how I live my life. Um, like, obviously I need it to function and I need it to live, but like outside of that, like I try not to get too attached to it, and it just kind of ruins my enjoyment of things on like the term I want to use is spiritual level, but I don't feel like that's the right term. Um, but it's I do what I can so I can make a little bit of money so I can play around with my teams. Obviously I don't like throw my cards away for dirt cheap on the market and lose a bunch of money, but I don't actively pursue flipping cards. I don't actively super heavy micro in tournaments or super spam tournaments on all my teams. I just try and play the game a bit, and if I make some money doing that, that's how I play the game.
So, given that the auction house isn't really your thing, how have you built a game economy that has sustained your team? You mentioned tournaments, but how did you go about using those tournaments to fund you, or what other mechanisms have you found?
I've actually been a pretty successful bronze tournament player, and I know that's like people say bronze tournament, that's all RNG. I don't agree. I think you're on my side with this one as well. I think if you put together the best bronze tournament team, your win rates are actually pretty good, and you can make a substantial amount of money for a very small entry cost. Um, so I think that's a great way to do it. And while I play a lot of dailies and not as much quick tournaments, which isn't the best way to make money, but it revolves less time of me managing. So I like that because I'm lazy. But yeah, so I do that. I think I've just had some good reads on cards, where I'll put something into my model and I go, wow, that's underpriced. And I kind of want one on my team. So I buy it. And then because I'm always rebuilding my team in a few weeks, I'll go, I don't want this card anymore. But by that time, other people have caught on to it's a good card and then it's worth more. Like I bought Roger Connor when he was tanking for when Stand Usual came out, right? And I bought him for around 100K, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I think he's up to 170 right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's deals like that I can flip. And people have been very kind to me with selling cards. A lot of people sell me a card for cheaper because they know me,
And
and they
they
want to find
should.
me a deal. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, I don't know that they should, but I just people have been very kind to me. Just because I'm pretty public, I don't have a lot of money. I did put some money into this game, right? I put a few hundred in that I don't really have, but I enjoy it and it's my hobby, so I think that's fair.
yeah. So you happen to play in the DLL, and as someone who doesn't have unlimited financial resources and doesn't have the fever passion for the auction house and doesn't spam tournaments all day, why do you play in the DLL when it would be just so much easier to play in a random diamond league?
This is a question I ask myself every single Sunday night when I'm about to re-enter the new friends list, and I go, "Why am I doing this?" Um, I would rather at this point win DLL than I would win Perfect League. And as much as I want that 8-inch trophy sitting on my desk gathering dust, there is something to be said about playing the game with friends and beating those friends at the game, right? And I think that's way more fun to me than sitting at my desk microing all week and maybe winning the playoffs, um, in Perfect League. So I don't know. I think DLL is a more realistic goal, and I think it's a more fun goal. And it's not that different of a difficulty. I mean, we had two teams go straight from Perfect League to Gold, and they did okay in Perfect League. It's not like they were 60-win teams; they were 80-win teams in Perfect League, right? So DLL is brutal, man. I'm surprised I almost made playoffs this week, and I'm hoping I can do it again next week. Maybe make the playoffs for once.
Here's a random hypothetical for you. You get to win your first DLL title, and I'm going to give you the opportunity to pick who you beat for that title. Who of the DLL members would you pick?
It's got to be Walnut. I mean, let's be real. Who wouldn't pick to beat Walnut for the DLL title? If it's not Walnut, it would have to be API, because API is by far, in my opinion, I would say probably like the best manager in DLL. The amount of micro he puts into this game is very insane. And he just went back up to perfect. He won DLL this week, so many congrats to him. He's a fantastic manager.
So, what has your DLL experience been like? What have you liked about it, if anything? What have you disliked about it, if anything?
Yeah, so I don't know. DLL has a lot of people with a lot of strong opinions, and I know sometimes they rub people the wrong way on the Discord, but there's something to be said about being a person with a strong opinion, and I think what I've learned with time as a person with a lot of strong opinions is you have to, you know, you can come out and you can, be inflammatory, and you can try and, shut them down and whatnot. But if you just try and respect each other and have a good time, which I think everybody in DLL pretty much does with each other, I think you can get along and really enjoy each other and have some fun with it. So I think having some fun and being able to play with some friends is a much more enjoyable experience than just beating people up in a diamond league.
And you've been in DLL for quite some time. Were you in there before me or after me? I can't remember.
I believe I joined right around when you did. I don't know if it was before you. It might have been just after you. I joined pretty early, but not at the start.
So, moving on from main league play to talk about what we all want to talk about this weekend perfect team. So, how crazy did you think I was when I asked you to do that show with me?
I was excited, actually, because I wanted to do something just like it, but it's one of those things where it's an ambition of mine, but I have tried to stream and I am not the greatest at it. So without finding somebody who I can bounce off of and talk with and who can host and who's really good with, making up graphics and things like that, it probably just wasn't going to happen. I'm one of those people that can talk a lot, has great ideas, and I'm just not great at making them come to life a lot of the time.
So, you've streamed before. What have you streamed? Is it Out of the Park or is it other things?
Let's see. I streamed some of the show. I streamed definitely Out of the Park. I streamed some offline. I've streamed some online. Um, I've streamed some spreadsheet. As fascinating as that sounds, I know. Um, and I don't know. I don't. It's hard for me to talk without being talked back to. I think that's like one of the major parts of streaming that like I really have a problem picking up on. So, I don't know what's like in store for the future of streaming for me. It's something I'd like to do more, but like, without getting an audience for it. We have a fantastic audience with this week in Perfect Team, right? And there's
Incredible.
always people in the it really is. There's always people in the chat, I can talk to, and there's, you're a great host, and you're always bouncing questions off me, and there's always something to do or say. And when I'm streaming by myself, I don't have that feeling, and it's just so different. So I don't know if it's for me streaming solo, right?
So, what do you enjoy about doing the show that we do on Thursdays for this week in Perfect Team? What do you like about it?
Um, I it gives me a chance to get my opinion out there, which is something that's fun and not something I thought I really enjoyed until I started doing it. Um, and it's really kind of something for better or for worse. I say a lot of things on the show. I talk a lot, and it's come back to bite me sometimes, and other times it hasn't. But I've been wrong on a lot of cards so far, and I've been right on some of them. And I think it's almost like a game, seeing how accurate I can be and how accurate my model is at predicting things. And is it getting better with time? Is it getting worse with time? What adjustments do I need to make? Who's overperforming? Who's underperforming? What can I do to adjust? And things like that. It's just a lot of fun, and really interacting with the people has been the greatest part for me. Just having people who come out to hear me blabber on about nonsense, but then participating, in that is really fun. Um, it's really you guys who are watching right now that make it the enjoyment for me, and so that's why I do it. And it's really a thrill having all you guys around. So thank you for showing up.
Yeah, and kidneys, you and I both have missed on plenty of cards to this point. I think we were raving lunatics about the Cal Ripken face of the franchise card, and that has not come to
Yep.
pass because of that BABIP. And we'll go ahead and watch 45 BABIP emotes
Oh yes.
fling up in the chat right now. But the challenge is that we're making those calls within a half hour of those cards being
Oh
presented.
yeah.
So, without any benefit of seeing how the auction house treats it, without any benefit of seeing how those cards play, we are going on the record and shooting our shot to tell you how good we think they're going to be. And I feel pretty confident about the methods that we use. I love the fact that you can ping me once those ratings are in and say, okay, I have this guy as number 4 VR and number 25 VL. And I have a lot of confidence in those for giving ballpark estimates. So I think you do a fantastic job, and I think the community is so well served by having you offering your take on the various cards right away and offering it from a perspective of a mathematical backed informed opinion.
Yeah, it's something, man. It's really been kind of crazy to have so many people value my opinion so highly. It was really never anything I thought would happen. Like it's really cool to like see come to fruition. Something valuable come out of kind of my quarantine baby of the spreadsheet.
Hmm.
And if you're a user of my spreadsheet or somebody who follows it a little bit, maybe you've seen like the massive amount of updates I've been putting into recently. But that's really for the show, because I'm really trying right now to nail down some things to get accurate results for the shows. So when we do go live, as much as I can in good grace, we can make sure that there isn't a big flop like a Cal Ripken, and I can really accurately give you guys something to go off of for when you're trying to make that initial purchase or trying to rip that first card.
So, do you get the nerves going before a show? Do you feel that moment? Is that
Oh yeah.
anxious for you?
Oh yeah, all the time. Like I said it earlier on the show, and for sure, I am a very nervous person. And I've done all sorts of weird things during the show. I think I mentioned one time in DLL. There was one time I don't know why, but I just went and I took a shower before the show, and I was watching Chris reveal the new cards in the shower, and that was at that moment where Chris said the famous line. He goes, "And they are hot and they are sexy," referring to you and me. And I was watching him in the shower, and I was like, "This is really weird. I don't know how I feel about this." So I've done some weird things before the show to try and calm my nerves, but once we get live and once I start talking and after a few cards I get into it and I just kind of lose myself in it, and I'm good to go. So even like now I was a little nervous before the interview, but now that I'm talking, once you get me talking, I can talk for hours. So.
Yeah, one of my former bosses told me that anyone that doesn't like public speaking hasn't done enough of it. And at the time, I thought he was full of it. And the more that I've had an opportunity to professionally speak in public and then run this channel, I think that he's more right than he is wrong. And I think if that's something that is a growth area for you or an area that you struggle with or it's your worst nightmare, I think that every year it comes out higher on the list of fears than dying. That I would just encourage you to take some baby steps and get out there and find an audience, whether it's just a dinner party or maybe you're speaking in front of a small community group or something. I think that, and maybe it's just not for everyone. I have grown to love gabbing in front of people and exposing my ignorance by telling you how great cards are before they flop. But it's absolutely been an awesome and wild ride in kidneys. I think without you, this weekend Perfect Team doesn't really have a basis to it. So you've been an absolute asset to that show for sure.
Thank you. That means a lot. I don't know. I don't think there's as many observed statistic guys as there are model guys. Maybe that's because I'm in the model profession and I know all of them, but I feel like there's a lot of guys out there like API, like Quanta, JDA, to name some of them, who you could replace me with and would do just a fine job. But I feel like for observed guys, maybe you could replace you with the 3-time Mac Jacks, but there's not
overrated.
A lot of guys. Yeah, there's not a lot of guys out there who do what you do, man. So give yourself some credit. Especially you've been killing it with the analysis lately too. So it's been great to see.
So what remains on your to-do list in Perfect Team 21? You've created a sheet that everyone loves, that everyone uses. You're improving it on a weekly basis. You have competed at the highest level in DLL with a budget team. What remains on that to-do list for you?
I think the first step really is make the DLL playoffs. I was a game out this week, and somehow Oil Can Boyd made it into my lineup. I'm not sure how that happened, but he threw a pretty good 2 innings against Walnut, and then he didn't go farther than that. So we're still looking into that bug, but outside of that, once I actually make DLL playoffs, and then we'll see if I can manage my way to a victory. We'll work on that. And then outside of that, I don't really know. I don't really have too much interest in winning a big tournament card. I think my 3 fourth-place finishes for Bartolo Colon have been so depressing that I just don't care anymore. So I don't know. Really what's on the list after DLL. Maybe if I win DLL and then I get my butt kicked in Perfect, I'll try and make it back to Perfect. Or maybe if I get in DLL playoffs, I'll try and make it to Perfect in a random Diamond League. I don't really know. I haven't really thought that far ahead yet. I think this was the week that was kind of make or break for me because I put my all into my team. And if I couldn't compete in DLL, I was probably going to end up having to leave it, because I would just get relegated every other week till the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I know I can compete, I'm just hoping that I can kind of hang around for a few weeks at least.
So what would a DLL title mean to you? Would that be a validation of all of the work that you put in?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think there's a question for anybody who knows what it is that DLL is the second hardest league right now, right? And if I could win that, and then like Mac Jacks talked about, if Walnut, we convince Walnut into making a trophy, I would be more than happy with a DLL trophy. So let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen, Walnut. So, going to more future focused questions here, do you see yourself playing Perfect Team 22? Like, honestly, it's hard to think of an out of the park Discord or an out of the park community without your sheet floating around. Have you already told yourself or committed to yourself that you're going to play next year? Or is that something that's not necessarily been decided yet?
Outside of finding like some very time consuming romantic interest or getting a full-time job or magically, getting healed from all my ailments and then being able to move forward in life, I think OOTP is going to be a staple for me in just how I spend my time. And in fact, the reason why I've been working so hard on the sheet, outside of just trying to get it right for the stream, is I want to be able to hit the ground running in Out of the Park 22. I want to have it right for next year. And as much as I can, right? Because I'm sure they'll change some things how it works because they have to. But I want to be able to, have the refined BAPIP formula. I want to be able to have the accurate pitching or hitting projections, which I've kind of boiled into a little bit, and then I want to revamp the pitching model that I have, so it's like my hitting model and all sorts of things like that. So I'm getting there, but we'll see. But I should definitely have it done by March. So.
And so you've mentioned your own personal Twitch channel. Why don't you share with everyone what that is? And then we'll link it in the chat.
Yeah, so it's just twitch.tv/YourKidneys, I believe.
Okay.
That is IES. I know I spell it differently every single place I go. That is an intentional decision to frustrate people. But,
And if we were to see you increase your presence on Twitch or start popping up, Monday stream or whatever, what would we expect to find, or what do you think that you would do if you moved in that direction? What would you be streaming?
it's probably Out of the Park. Just because people know me for Out of the Park, and like I said, I like streaming when I can talk to people. So really, if you see me streaming, and you like my sheet or you like Out of the Park, just pop in and talk to me. If you have some questions about how some things work in the game, or you want to know more about my spreadsheet, or even just get to know me, just pop in and talk in the chat. I'd love to talk to people. That's pretty much my shtick. So
Yeah, definitely do that. Check out YourKidneys, twitch.tv/YourKidneys, IES at the end of it. And that's going to conclude our interview. Kidneys, any closing thoughts for the viewers?
um I just, the amount of support you guys have shown us over the past, I think it's been 6 weeks now, 6 or 7 weeks now. It's been fantastic. And I never could have imagined just going from being a kid who's not very good at math with some spreadsheet he's managed to cook together over the duration of the coronavirus, to having an actual little following behind him, and DRC for helping promote me and getting me out of bed on Thursdays to make some things happen. So shout out to all you guys, shout out to DRC. It's just really been a blast and I really enjoy it. So I hope you guys enjoy it too, and thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, anytime, Kidneys. As I mentioned before, I think you're an integral part of the Out of the Park community, and the community is way better and well better served, given what you've contributed from an asset perspective, as well as what you bring to us every Thursday night. And with that, we will close up the interview. So what'd you guys think? We learned a ton more about our adopted son, YourKidneys. And kidneys, let's figure out the flight logistics getting you from the Boston area to Chicago. We can do that after the stream here. But a great interview. So reminder, guys, I don't know if people were just listening and didn't see it, but we opened up our very first ever stream giveaway. And currently there are only 21 tickets purchased. And by purchased, I mean claimed. They are free. And we've got 50 viewers in the chat. So if you want a chance to win 10,000 perfect points, do exclamation point ticket in the chat. And we'll draw that in just a second. But first, let me thank Kidneys. That was a great interview. You were more than willing to open up and share with us about some of the struggles that you deal with on an ongoing basis. I thought that was very admirable. And honestly, it makes it all the more impressive at the consistency and faithfulness that you provide the service you do to the community. You know, no one else is out there doing what you've done, and up until a couple of weeks ago, there was really no second best option. And the other thing to know about Kidneys is his DMs are always open. If you want to talk to someone about order of operations of the game, about strategy for building a team and entry pool, about the best budget pitcher under 50K, Kidneys will never turn you away. And if you drop him a DM, he'll probably give you a very thoughtful response. So he's really a gem in the out of the park community. He's a gem in the DLL. And we're very lucky to have him. So let's close down the giveaway in 10 seconds. We've got 33 entrants. So reminder, exclamation point ticket will open up eligibility to win. Anyone can win, whether you're a subscriber or not. And we'll close it down in 3, 2, 1. All right, it's time to draw some winners. First, we've got DMP1. Second, Invictus NTC. And third, J Ronk 9. So if you can just, as similar to how you used to do with Chris, send me your, let me remember exactly what information we need. I believe it's your username. Yeah, perfect team username with the correct capitalization. And then we will get those perfect points into your perfect team account. Congratulations, guys. And we will be doing this every stream going forward. So every time you get that notification on your phone that says DRC's live and streaming Out of the Park Baseball, we are going to be doing one of these giveaways. So if you haven't, click the follow, click the notification so that you don't miss an opportunity for those sweet, sweet, perfect points. A week from today, I will have Pidge, the auction house speculator himself, Mr. Multi-account, alt-account. We're going to dive into how he does what he does and why he does what he does. And I can't wait for that interview. I welcome you all back here. I think it will be insightful and we'll all walk away learning something that we don't know today. Are cards in packs yet? No. we are not announcing cards. We have no cards to give. As far as other shows for you guys to watch, Thursday, Kidneys and I will be doing This Week in Perfect Team. And we're going to go through whatever set Chris drops on us. I think it's the mustache set. Is this week the mustache set? I'm not sure about that. But either way, I know someone was saying it's Boggs. Yep, mustache is coming at us on Thursday. But thanks for watching tonight. And we'll see you on Thursday. And we'll see you next Tuesday for this show. And as a reminder, there will be no Perfect League World Series on Sunday. So I'm going to work my best to get back in there so that you guys can enjoy that again. And I'll keep you updated on that. I've got a tough field to wade through. Currently, I'm not even in the playoffs in DLL, so we'll see what happens. Wait till next year says over his dead body. Crash offering up his Silver League World Series. All right, guys. I'm going to sign off now. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you soon.